This clip of the Arch Advocate podcast is about the revelation of the Jussie Smollets debacle and what that actually means for the left. It's a little bit lengthy, I know, but if you want to listen to the entire podcast, if you're into listening to podcasts during the day, you can find the entire episode in the links below. And most importantly, please hit subscribe. As you can see, I've got less than 300 subscribers. I've been podcasting for over a year. Unacceptable. Hit that subscribe button, hit share so all your friends can see it and the word can get out, and hit that bell icon. I would appreciate that. This is about Jussie Smollets and sort of how it ties into everything else that the left has been doing. I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope to see you over on the podcast as well. You can write in. It's an interactive podcast. I strongly encourage all listeners to interact with the show. We all have to stick together during these trying times. Here's the clip. Enjoy. And now on to some happier news. Jussie Smollets decided to lodge a false police report, that he was attacked by some white racists who were wearing MAGA hats, Make America Great Again hats. Boy, those racists, man, they're everywhere. By itself, this wouldn't be newsworthy, right? There's people that lodge, false crime reports every day, I'm sure, somewhere in America. And you'll never hear about those people because they're not famous. But that's actually a big crime. But the bigger thing here is that this is, I don't know, what's the word, emblematic of the times that we're in, who the Democrats are. People who say that they're progressives, this is who they are now. And we can use a couple of different proofs to make that case. And this is why we have stories like the boy who cried wolf. This is why, because when the wolf actually does show up, you're going to get eaten. So nobody's going to believe you. So here's this guy, and he goes around saying, I was beaten up, horribly terrorized. There was a terrorist act. By the way, hate crimes, right? Nowadays, we have a different category for hate crimes. Right? If it's racially motivated or religiously motivated, well, then it's a hate crime, and we have a very specific set of laws for that. It's very much akin to terrorism. This man made the claim that he was terrorized by people like me, white people, white men who love the president and are nationalistic in their views. Right? So he's basically saying, I assaulted him, and what was the thing? Beat him up and then poured urine on him or something like that. Bleach. I'm sorry, bleach. Poured bleach on him to make him whiter. And then it turns out that the whole thing was a big fat lie that he himself staged and that he himself paid for. And now he faces 3 years in prison because what he did was against the law. Now, again, by itself, this is a non-story. It's some guy did an asshole, like when you hear about, remember a couple years ago, and pardon the cough, everybody. You remember a couple of years ago, we all saw the video of that woman who was in an argument with her husband, and she was all by herself in the bedroom arguing with her husband, who was evidently in the other room, or maybe wasn't even in the house at all, but she started punching herself and beating herself up and marking herself up with wounds so that she could call the cops and say, oh, my husband beat me up. Now I get to take all of his stuff and get full custody of the kids. Like, we saw that. It didn't make national news, but it made national Twitter. It made national Facebook and Instagram. And we all saw that and we said, that is despicable what you're doing. You're going to go before a judge with the pictures of your wounds and say that your husband did it. He will be found guilty of that crime and he will go to prison. And then you are going to take all of the money that he's earned. And if there's any kids involved, you're going to take full custody and that man will never be able to see his kids again. That's disgusting. We all saw it. This is exactly what Jussie Smollets did. He hired 2 of his friends from Nigeria, once again proving that, America is so great that if you want to be oppressed, you need to hire some people from Nigeria to come and oppress you. But This is where we're at, right? Just like on the map at the mall, you are here. This is where we are at. A guy that has millions of followers, millions of fans, right? So he has social equity, right? He's got a voice. There's people who listen to him. Now, again, I don't want to make too big of a deal out of something that is going to happen today. Somebody's going to file a false report to the police today, and you're not going to hear about it, and neither am I. But this is a little bit different. Matter of fact, it's all the way different. We had sitting U.S. congresspeople and sitting U.S. senators tweeting out and going onto their social media and saying, hey, Jussie Smollets, we're with you, man. This Donald Trump guy is driving people crazy. That's why you got attacked. Because all the Donald Trump people, they came and beat you up because you're black and gay. And the Donald Trump people don't like the blacks or the gays. We're with you, Jussie. We're with you. Look at how awful this country is. Look how awful and racist this country is, that this poor black gay man would get attacked. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be talking about it. Just some actor who was in the process of getting, his character being killed on the show, and so he was going to be out of work before long. So he decides that he's going to push himself further into the spotlight, the national spotlight, to try to guarantee himself some work in the future. Because after all, he's a victim, man. He's high on the victim card. He's black and he's gay. Everybody needs to give him a job. He's black and gay. And we all have to bow down to the blacks and the gays and both if they're the same person. That's what happened. And then Cory Booker chimed in. Alexandria Occasional Cortex chimed in. Kamala Harris chimed in. I think Elizabeth Warren was in the mix somewhere in there too. Nancy Pelosi was in there too. We have people who run this country. That's what congresspeople and senators do. They lead the country. And we had national leaders backing this guy's claims that America is racist and people like me are the devil. We need to be dealt with. And this Trump guy has to go because he's empowering people like me to beat up gay black men and pour bleach on them to make them whiter. That's what they said. And now the truth comes out. And again, this isn't a standalone story. I will remind you of just months ago, there was a lady named Christine Blasey Ford who lied to a Senate committee. Said that this guy, Brett Kavanaugh, sexually assaulted her in high school. And she didn't have any proof. She didn't have any dates. She couldn't even tell where it had happened. She remembered nothing except for the names of a couple other people that were around that circle of people at the time in the 1980s. And every single one of those people said, yeah, this Christine Blasey Ford lady, I have no idea what she's talking about. And she sat in that room and gave her shit-eating grin right into the camera. And she did her little cutesy voice. Oh, I don't remember. I'm just a girl. She was willing to trash a man's life his entire career. And to some degree, she was successful. I mean, he's on the Supreme Court, but his kids are never going to forget that. That went down in the records of American history. The time that this lady went up there and would just say anything just to take this guy down. And why? Because he was picked by Donald Trump. This is the sickness with these people. And this is the good news, actually. Again, you can look at this and go crazy. You can look at what Jussie, the poofter, the butt boy, as the lady at MSNBC calls him, right? Remember that? Remember the butt boy comment? So Jussie Butt Boy Smollets goes and tries to slander a bunch of people. Christine Blasey Ford goes and tries to slander a bunch of people, or one guy. But it's not really about that guy. It's not really about anything at all other than Donald Trump. We hate Donald Trump. And we just want to make this guy look like a racist. And it's like, well, every time you say something, it turns out to be a lie. It's the same concept, if you will, as when we saw that Christian guy with the bakery shop in Colorado. Remember, oh, this bigot, he won't paint pictures of dicks on a wedding cake for these gay people. And then it turns out, right? Not that I mean, most of America was like, well, you can't make anybody paint anything. You can't make an artist paint you something. If he wants to do it, he will. If he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't. That's kind of the nature of art. That's how that works. And we all saw that, and then the truth started coming out a little bit more, and it turns out that these people were just violent gay people, violent sodomites who traveled way outside of their way, miles and miles and miles, passing dozens of other bakeries just to pick on this guy because he's a Christian. We certainly can't have Christians running around baking cakes. This is the whole thing with the Democrats now, and with leftists, and with progressives, or whatever it is that they're calling themselves these days. This is their whole thing. It's all lies. It's all like the Me Too movement. Jussie Smollets and the Me Too movement. Remember the Me Too movement? Remember how that worked out? Remember Harvey Weinstein, a Jewish man, got found out for raping pretty much every starlet in Hollywood, which explained a lot. It explains how Megan Fox got jobs being in the movies. Remember, because I mean, she was certainly hot. We were all looking at her like, man, that's a fine looking woman. But when we saw her acting abilities, we were like, how did she get a job acting? This girl's really dumb. Then it turns out it's like, oh, Harvey Weinstein. Got it. So Harvey Weinstein gets caught raping everybody. And then what did people, what's that girl's name? Ashley Judd, right? And all the other Me Too movement people came out. They came out and they said, look, we all got raped by Harvey Weinstein. So naturally, we need to attack conservative Christians. You know what I mean? Like that. This is who they are now. There's no concept too absurd for these people to breed. Jussie Smollets pays a couple of his friends to beat him up so that he can go to the police, file a report, and then go on to the media and say, oh, these Trump supporters, man, they're all racist. Look what they did to my face. And they poured bleach on me. Oh. This is who they are nowadays, and they cannot win. They cannot win. We just saw, okay, it's the same thing with the Russian investigation. So Hillary Clinton sells 25% of our nation's uranium, which is used to make the most powerful bomb ever invented by man, sells it to the Russians in the open. Like there was no cover up there. They were like, yeah, we sold them our uranium. And then they come out and say, and also these people are they pose the biggest threat to American sovereignty. And Donald Trump is working for them. It's like, wait a minute. So the current country of Russia, who's run by Vladimir Putin, they're the enemy. I'm assuming they've been our enemy for a long time. I don't know. I'm not a politician. I don't really pay that much attention to what goes on in that realm, behind closed doors. I don't really, there's people whose job it is to keep up on that sort of thing. But all right, so you're telling me that they're our enemy, and you just sold them the ingredients for the most powerful weapon ever devised by man. And Trump's the bad guy. Harvey Weinstein raped you, and Trump is the bad guy. And I'm the bad guy for voting for Trump, and my white sons are guilty by association. My sons are bad people because they came out of me, and I will be voting for Trump in 2020. I see. I see. The gay wedding cake guy, right? The Christian guy who bakes wedding cakes refuses to bake a wedding cake, and he's oppressing gay people. But it turns out that these gay people actually singled him out and went through a great deal of trouble to ruin this guy's life. I see. I see. Okay, guess what, gays? No more. No more. Whatever slack we had given you, that's all over now. Right? That whole Me Too thing with the every, believe all women, you can thank Christine Blasey Ford. None of us believe you anymore. All that stuff's out the window. All this racist talk. Well, what about that rally in North Carolina where that racist Nazi killed those people with his car? Oh, you mean that white guy that ran his car into a group of white people and killed a white woman? God help her. That racist guy? The white guy who ran his car into a crowd of white people and killed a white woman? That guy. I'm to blame for that guy. That's interesting. I see. I know that type of story sells to a lot of people. That's what keeps the young Turks in diamonds and furs. That's what keeps CNN. And listen, here's the funny thing. This is how you know it's all over for these people. I'm a big fan of the Owen Benjamin show, right? The Owen Benjamin channel on YouTube. He does a live stream 5 days a week. And it goes on for like 3 hours. Let me tell you something, that's hard. I could do it, but it's hard. It's very difficult to speak and do so coherently for 2 hours, 3 hours. It's not easy. But let me put it to you this way. Owen Benjamin has more viewers on his live stream, which he doesn't advertise, he doesn't have advertisers, he doesn't do any of that stuff. He has more people watching his live stream every day than people who watch CNN at any given time during the day. And it's like 4,000 when he's live and 30,000 by the end of the day, something like that, 25,000 by the end of the day, something like that. This is how you know it's over for them. They can have all of the pretty production. Listen, speaking of production, right? Now you guys know, listening to this podcast or if you're watching on YouTube, the audio is bad and the visual is bad because I'm here with my GoPro recording onto it. I don't have a microphone, I don't have lights. All of those things will come. The quality of this show will improve, and right now this is all I have, and so guess what? I'm going to use it. I don't need high production quality. These people at CNN, it's like they spend millions of dollars on their graphics and lights and makeup and scripts and people who write for them and trucks and cameras and, you know what I mean? Like, they put a lot of money into production, and yet people don't want to watch them. And here's Owen Benjamin sitting there. I mean, I'm sure he's got probably a $5,000 camera that he uses to video, himself with and whatever. But people don't want production value more than they just want to hear the truth. People are hungry for the truth, and if you just have the courage to say it, you'll be doing all of mankind a huge favor. It may not be immediately thanked. You might get fired. You might get, people might talk crap about you in your church or in your bowling league or whatever it is that you're into. You know what I mean? That might be the cost. But there's a lot of people that, when they see this Jussie Smollets thing, they see the spiritual side of it. They see that these leftists, these progressives, are liars. Andrea Ocasio-Cortez with her Green New Deal and how she's going to save the environment by helping black trans people. It's like, wait a minute, how do those two things... Wait a minute. The hell are you talking about? There's people... Somewhere in everybody's mind, they're thinking, that doesn't make any sense. Just like when they saw Harvey Weinstein raping everybody and then Ashley Judd blaming conservative Christian white men. It's like, wait a minute. How did you make that leap? Those two things don't belong together. One of them is a liberal Jew. The other is faithful to his wife and raises his own children. Those two things, they don't, you know what I mean? Christine Blasey Ford. Wait a minute. You get to be on television in a Senate hearing committee being asked a bunch of questions, right? You get to be famous for 15 minutes and your story doesn't it doesn't have any coherency to it. You're saying he sexually assaulted you, but you don't remember where, you don't remember how you got there, you don't remember when, and you don't remember anybody else that was there, except for the other guy who was a judge, who also participated in the, horrific act. Oh, and all of your friends say they have no idea what you're talking about. But the Democrats, they marched her out to push that narrative. That's what makes them complicit. That's why the problem is so big that it deserves to be spoken about. I wouldn't be talking about Jussie Smollets if it wasn't for the fact that congresspeople and senators pushed that narrative as far as they could. And now what do they get in return? They just keep losing more people. Build that wall. Make America great again. That is the show for today. If you want to support the show, you can do so at Arch Advocate. PayPal.me/Arch Advocate. There we go. PayPal.me/Arch Advocate. Send some dough. Support the things that you love, people, or else they can go away. One of these days, this GoPro's going to break. This laptop's going to break. I'm going to have to replace it. And if there's no money there, it's not going to happen. So support the things you love. PayPal.me/Arch Advocate. And hit subscribe on the YouTube show and on the podcast, and tell a friend. That's huge. And I will talk to you all tomorrow.